Welcome to Talk to MG. This is my show on Actify Press, and we're going to be talking about stuff that's important to us, mostly about stuff that's important to black people, and we're going to do that unapologetically. So let's ride.
Hey, this is Michael Graham of Actify Press, and you listen to Talk to MG. This is one of my Let's Ride features. Today I want to talk to you about black leadership. Not misleadership this time. I've written about that in the past, but right now we're going to talk about black leadership. We first let me let you listen to an 8-minute clip from Malcolm X. This is a speech he gave in sometime in the 60s. I can't give you an exact date, but just listen and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Is the method that the white man uses, how the white man uses these big guns or Negro leaders against the black revolution. They're not a part of the black revolution. They're used against the black revolution. When Martin Luther King failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights struggle in America reached its low point. King became bankrupt almost as a leader. Plus, even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in financial trouble. Plus, it was in trouble, period, with the people when they failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson. In Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders begin to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you, they contained you. They kept you on the plantation. As soon as King failed in Birmingham, Negroes took to the streets. King got out and went out to California to a big rally and raised about, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Come to Detroit and had a march and raised some more thousands of dollars. And recall, right after that, Wilkins attacked King, accused King and the Corps of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP get him out of jail and spend a lot of money, and then he accused King and Corps of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened. I got it in documented evidence in the newspaper. Roy started attacking King, and King started attacking Roy, and Farmer started attacking both of them. And as these Negroes of national stature begin to attack each other, they begin to lose their control of the Negro masses. And Negroes was out there in the streets. They was talking about, we're going to march on Washington. By the way, and right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside the head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham. So, and right after that, Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he's going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was going to go out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no airplanes land. I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the black revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. Scared the white man to death. Scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called in Wilkins. They called in Randolph. They called in these national Negro leaders that you respect. and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, you all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. A matter of hours went by. They had a meeting at the Carnell Hotel in New York City. The Carnell Hotel is owned by the Kennedy family. That's the hotel Kennedy spent the night at 2 nights ago. Belongs to his family. A philanthropic society headed by a white man named Stephen Currier called all the top civil rights leaders together at the Carnell Hotel and told them that by you all fighting each other, you're destroying the civil rights movement. And since you're fighting over money from white liberals, let us set up what's known as the Council for United Civil Rights Leadership. Let's form this council, and all the civil rights organizations will belong to it, and we'll use it for fundraising purposes. Let me show you how tricky the white man is. And as soon as they got it formed, they elected Whitney Young as the chairman. And who you think became the co-chairman? Stephen Currier, the white man. A millionaire. Powell was talking about it down at the Cobo today. This is what he was talking about. Powell knows it happened. Randolph knows it happened. Wilkins knows it happened. King knows it happened. Every one of that so-called Big Six. They know what happened. Once they formed it, with the white man over it, he promised them and gave them $800,000 to split up between the Big Six, and told them that after the march was over, they'd give them $700,000 more. $1.5 million split up between leaders that you've been following, going to jail for, crying crocodile tears for, and they've nothing but Frank James and Jesse James and brothers. Soon as they got the setup organized, the white man made available to them top public relations experts, opened the news media across the country at their disposal, and then they began to project these Big Six as the leaders of the march. Originally, they weren't even in the march. You was talking this march talk on Hastings Street. Is Hastings Street still here? On Hastings Street. You was talking the march talk on Lenox Avenue, and down on, Fillmore Street, and Central Avenue, and 42nd Street, and 63rd Street. That's where the march talk was being talked. But the white man put the Big Six ahead of it, made them the march. They became the march. They took it over. And the first move they made after they took it over, they invited Walter Reuther, a white man. They invited a priest, a rabbi, and an old white preacher. Yes, an old white preacher. The same white element that put Kennedy in power labored. The Catholics, the Jews, and liberal Protestants. Same clique that put Kennedy in power joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream.
Now that you listen to Malcolm, I wanted him to set the stage for what I'm getting ready to talk about. Now, we've been here, I've said it ad nauseum. We as, slaves and the descendants of slaves have been here 400 years. We've been here longer than most of the people here. Only the people that predate us are the Native Americans. We've been here a long time, and one of the issues that we always have, especially in recent years, is that white America, or the powers that be in America, and they're all white for the most part, don't want us to have uncompromising leadership, right? The minute that we have leaders that are going to fight for us to the end, they either get bought off, silenced, replaced, eliminated. The minute they start talking about economic solutions, they build strong arguments for economic solutions for the descendants of slaves in the United States. That's the key, right? That's the one that gets you. That's the one that gets you hurt. Economic solutions for descendants of slaves in the United States. Currently, and over the last, I guess since early 2019, late 2018, there's been a concerted effort to kind of knock off Yvette, Carnell, and Antonio Moore from the leadership of ADOS, or ADOS. That ADOS is the American Descendants of Slavery as in the institution. Now, when I say knock off, I mean remove them from leadership. To remove the mantle of leadership from these two individuals. Now, Tony and Yvette, they built most of the arguments that myself and other ADOS folks use on a daily basis. They've been pushing this ADOS from the beginning. ADOS as an identity and as a movement was started by these two people. Okay, and the arguments they built are extremely powerful because they're built on data, they're built on history, and they're built on simple, logical, mathematical, and economic foundations. And they're really, really hard to refute once you understand what's going on. But it's important to understand what happened in the beginning of this movement, right? So the power of this arguments, the fact that black people are at the core of any electoral success for the Democrats and any electoral success on the left. So on the state level and on the national level, the black vote for Democrats is absolutely indispensable. Okay? But for so many years, they've been used to getting that black vote for free, getting that black vote for nothing. And they were even getting the black vote even when they harmed us, right? So this ADOS marks a new day, a new focal point, and a new way to see politics for black people. Now, as I said, the Democrats depend on those votes, right? Even people like Bernie Sanders, whether his folks want to admit it or not, the black vote is pivotal for him to get the nomination. It is absolutely critical for him to get the nomination. Right now, as I speak right now, Joe Biden is still several points ahead of him and Elizabeth Warren, and that is mostly based on the black vote, which is basically bequeathed to him by Barack Obama. And all that I've spoken about on episode 2 of Talk to MG. Okay, so that hold that Biden has on the black vote is how he's going to win this nomination, and therefore Trump is gonna beat Biden like a drum, because he's not going to pull any punches. He's not going to back off Joe Biden's racist past. He's not going to back off Joe Biden with his hands all over women and girls. He's not going to back off any of that stuff. All that stuff is game, and he's going to crush Joe. And it's really that simple. The only person that has a chance is Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren, she is not built for this. She is not built to go on the ring against somebody like Trump, especially on a debate stage. Everybody but wonks will watch her get shredded by Trump on a debate stage. So we're moving on. Now we're back to leadership. Because Yvette and Tone are uncompromising, right, and they can't be bought off, and they can't be silenced, you have to find a way to remove their influence over black people, black voters, and especially these vocal out front ADOS members like myself and others, right? You have to find a way to remove their leadership and their influence from those people who are listening to Yvette and Tone and the people that are carrying that message forward. Now, there's only a few ways in left-ish politics. Well, anyway, left of center politics, from the center to the left of politics. There's only a few ways to silence or to make people stop listening, right? The big one is racism, right? Racism and anti-Semitism. Those are the two big ones that will get people to stop listening to outlets or different voices, right? If you charge them with racism or anti-Semitism, a lot of times you can get people to stop listening, right? So neither one of those fit for Yvette and Tone. So they went with anti-immigrant and fascist, right? That doesn't fit either, right? Because nobody has ever accounted for what people who were saying their immigrant voices were saying to ADOS, right? Nobody ever accounted for that. Nobody ever accounted for the vile things that they were saying, all the things that we're saying that was based in white supremacist rhetoric. Whether they come from black people is irrelevant. But all the lazy, uneducated, all those things they were saying, calling the descendants of slaves lazy, uneducated, you had your chance and you blew it, you don't deserve anymore, this is not your country. All those things that were being said to the descendants of slaves. And the reaction was, for the most part, understandable, right? If somebody comes in your house and tells you don't deserve any of this, and they want to push you out of your house, what do? You respond in kind, right? Some folks went a little overboard, but this is what happens. You're going to tell me you're not going to tell me how I conduct myself, how I raise my children, how I do things in my house or in my country in this regard. It is just not going to fly. And you're going to catch all kinds of hell doing and saying things like that. And that's how most people react, right? So a lot of that was understandable. So we're moving. So people took that and started saying that Yvette and Tone and ADOS are anti-immigrant, and Talib Kweli took it, and ADOS is trash, and he wrote his little trash article slandering Yvette Carnell, and all of them are only attacking Yvette. They don't touch Tone. Even people who are ADOS adjacent, like Tariq, right, in his FBA, Professor Black Truth, they didn't touch any of the men. They don't go after Sandy Darity. They don't go after Dr. Kevin Cosby. None of those people get a peep, right? Not even a fifth of what Yvette gets, right? So Yvette is a gay woman, a black gay woman on the left, and nobody but ADOS is defending her. In no other context would this fly. No other context would this fly, right? And that's another hint to let you know that, number one, we're on the right path, and number two, a whole bunch of folks are full of shit, okay? So these arguments are so strong, and they're so undeniable, and so rooted in data and law and economics that they are undeniable. And powerful arguments like that have a way of getting to people. So in order to get have any influence over the black vote, because the biggest influence of the black vote is basically in two places: the Democratic Party in general, and that is kind of split between the Obama wing of the Democratic Party, who is represented by Joe Biden, and the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party, which was represented by Kamala Harris, and now it's going to be represented and is represented by Elizabeth Warren. Okay, so those two factions within the Democratic Party command the black vote. Right, everybody else splits what's left. I know. What's that boy's name? From 538. Anyway, the dude from 538, I forget it. Nate Silver. He caught hell for calling Bernie's part of the black vote a residual. Voters are residual. He caught hell. I'm not even getting into that. He caught hell. He deserves to catch hell every chance people get to give it to him. So, in any event, those are the forces that pretty much can, at this point, that has a hold on the black vote. The black votes that are in play, the ones that don't fall under that one larger umbrella of the Democratic Party, and the two factions within the Democratic Party, and the remainder of black voters that fall under Bernie, and it's really atomized across the rest of the field, right? ADOS as a faction can pull enough black votes from any of those groups beyond those two top groups, the Obama wing and the Clinton wing. Everybody else is in play. ADOS, as I'm looking at it now, has influence over the remainder of those votes, and maybe even some of those votes that are under the Democratic Party umbrella. So that's really important, which is another reason why ADOS had to be silenced, right? What these forces want on the left and the center, what they want is more pliable leadership over ADOS, right? So they had to be connected with Pfeiffer, had to be connected with Tanton, with John Tanton, who died in July. So Tanton's dead. Yvette stepped down from Pfeiffer, and even when she was there, she was there to do work on to study how immigration affects black people, and it does. I've linked the studies in my article, actifypress.com/native, actifypress.com/native. I'll put a link at the bottom of this article, right at the bottom of this this podcast. So that whole thing was to keep ADOS from influencing black voters and pushing them to demand more for our vote, which we always should have demanded more for our vote, because we are the most dependable Democratic voters, and we are the most valuable block of voters in politics, right? Bar none, right? So we have to be very well in Democratic politics, bar none. We're the most valuable block of voters, right? Because everybody else is split, right? We're in the 90% plus for Democrats. Everybody, the remainder, Asian and Hispanic groups, they're in the 50-60 range, right? 50-60% range, right? Based on how the Democrats treat us, we probably need to be in the same range. But as far as Democratic politics is concerned, especially on a national level, our vote is absolutely invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. So, dictating or having any influence over a large group of black voters means a lot, and it's extremely valuable. Especially a group like ADOS, who can kind of knock on all these doors, even from across the political spectrum. ADOS knocks on all these doors, even bullshit black conservatives who are over there with the Republicans, right? You talk, they're over there for money. They're over there. It's about money for them over there, right? It's not. They tell you it's ideology, but it's about money over there. Okay, so most of them have a little money. They want to keep their taxes down, or they trying to hustle. Trying to get trying to make a little money like Candace Owen. Trying to be the favorite black conservative, the black conservative of the day, like Larry Elder, and so forth. Most of them are over there for those reasons. Okay, if you need a token, you can call them, right? But at the end of the day, it's about cash. Cash rules everything around, right? So when you talk about reparations, you get their attention too, okay? And across the political spectrum. So something like ADOS that reaches across the political spectrum is very, very powerful. You have to understand that an organization or a group or a movement like ADOS with uncompromising leadership is anathema to our current electoral system on the national level, and in some regards on the state level. A dedicated focus group that's dedicated to the uplift of black people is nightmare fuel for centrist Democrats. Nightmare fuel. It's also nightmare fuel for leftists, for centrists or right-wingers posing as leftists. Because there's a lot of folks that are just here for one thing or another. I'm just here for the Medicare for all. If it wasn't for that, most of them will vote otherwise, or that's their thing. Okay, but when it comes to reparations or the repair of specific American slaves, they got no time for that. Nah. So they have to silence that talk because they know the value of the black vote. So they have to shift us away from that leadership. And they'll try to place anybody else, somebody who speaks a little more softly, somebody that doesn't have as convincing arguments. That's who they want in front of this reparations movement. And we cannot, I say again, we cannot allow that to happen. Can you imagine what we would have accomplished if we didn't have to wait for Martin Luther King to become radicalized, right? If somebody who was talking economics before in the early 1960s as opposed to after the 1965 Civil Rights Act, right? So, and that's really what happened, is that leadership, the leadership that was less compromising, was more aggressive, and in some ways more violent, because they knew what they were up against, right? A lot of these folks came from the South, grew up in the Jim Crow South like my parents did, and they knew exactly what they were up against. White terrorism is some of the most violent terrorism in human history. Okay? So be very clear about that. And it's sanctioned by the United States government. Sanctioned and or enabled by the United States government. Folks knew what they were up against and they were ready to ride. So what the powers that be did was they used their money and power and influence over media, just like the Democrats have done, and put a more malleable face on the front of the reparations movement. That's what they're trying to do, but we're not allowing them to do that because we keep pointing back to ADOS 101. Even when I write, I don't pin all of my arguments on what Yvette and Tone have said or done. I kind of I try to use arguments that I've developed on my own as well, and I piggyback off of their arguments as well. But I also write it in a tone that people who are on the fence can understand. Right? That is still real, but the people who are on the fence or people who don't know which way to go, because to a lot of people, calling a black movement for reparations for the repair of the descendants of slaves, especially when we're facing genocide, it doesn't make sense to them to call them fascists. It just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense to call this movement anti-immigrant, right? Being self-interested doesn't make you anti-anything. And again, to likely misquote, but we're going to say paraphrase Malcolm X. I'm not anti-white or anti-immigrant in this regard. I'm pro-black. If you view that as anti-immigrant or anti-white, that's on you. This is a more self-interested brand of black politics. That's all this is. A more self-interested brand of black politics. Which, like everybody else plays politics. Everybody else plays politics for their self-interest. Right? So, every other group plays politics for their group. And and ADOS is doing the same. And that throws, and what the Democrats are used to is pushing us in a direction where they need our votes. And they thought that they could kill the ADOS movement by calling it anti-immigrant, the center and the left. They thought they could kill the ADOS movement by calling it anti-immigrant and calling it fascist and calling it everything else. None of that was true. Okay? None of that was true. It never was. But they said it anyway, with no proof, no real information, no emails, no minutes from meetings, nothing, no proof of money exchanging hands, just rumor and conjecture, which temporarily harmed the movement, right? So, again, uncompromising leadership, especially with a case this strong, is a problem for the Democrats because it fractures their control over the black vote. Because for many years we were so used to we'll just take the best we can without rocking the boat too much. We're just glad to be here, sort of thing. Right? We didn't recognize our own power, or rather, we feared our own power. Right? Because anytime we flexed, that would activate white terrorism, right? But right now, again, we're facing genocide. Fear is not something we can't afford to be scared to fight this fight now. We're facing the end game, and we can't be afraid to fight this fight. Come hither, come yon. Whatever it comes to, that's what it's going to be. And either you're with us or you're against us, to paraphrase George W. Bush. And it's really where we are. You don't get to decide the tone of this movement. You don't get to decide the framing of this movement. Nobody outside of ADOS gets to decide that. Nobody. And we respect every other movement to call their own ball as well. Okay? So the tone policing, the the effort to push Tone and Yvette back to the background. I'd like to big up Sandy Darity for standing strong with Yvette and Tone in the ADOS movement because they're trying to drive a wedge between him and the movement. And I'd like to, because he brings a massive level of not popularity. What's the word I'm looking for? He lends his cachet lends credence to these arguments and lends credence to ADOS as a movement, right? It fortifies it with his. He went to Brown for undergrad, postgrad at MIT. He's a professor at Duke. He is the top man in stratification economics, and he is not moving when it comes to ADOS. He hasn't shifted one iota. He doesn't consider himself leadership. I consider him a leader, but I don't matter. He doesn't consider himself leadership. He just provides the data that undergirds this fight. And he is one of the key people, along with Dr. Kevin Cosby over in Louisville, Kentucky. Right? These are the key people in this movement. And this fight is going to be that fight. And we can't take anything for granted. We can't take half steps, half measures, and we cannot allow anyone to remove our leaders. And right now, for the ADOS movement, that is Yvette, Carnell, and Antonio Moore. Right? They have built this thing. They have built this this movement, this powerful movement, which for all intents and purposes, is a new era of the civil rights movement, right? Finishing the work that was left incomplete by the assassination of Martin Luther King. And again, I addressed in another podcast that Martin Luther King was pro reparations. He was not anti reparations, and being part of the Poor People's Campaign was not anti-reparations either. Right? There is a space for collective uplift, and there is a space for specific policy for those that need more help than others. Right? So, and there's always room for both. There's always room for both. Okay? So, it's like triage. Not everybody needs a cast for a broken arm. Right? So if I lost a leg, that broken arm cast is not going to help me at all. Right? So in any event, moving on. So I'm not moving on really. I think that's it. Right? Again, like Malcolm showed you, that they will always try to shift uncompromising leadership. And they will use the media, they will use legislation, they will use law enforcement, they will use celebrities, all kinds of things, all kinds of individuals, all kinds of ways to drive a wedge between the people and that uncompromising leadership. Right? They will wave carrots in front of people's faces. Well, if you leave them, you can probably get this. Okay, it's not everything, but you could probably get this. They'll do stuff like that. We're not quite there yet, but I'm sure it's coming. Right? You can see with the Bernie campaign, I must say, they're trying to throw out these small policies that sort of kind of focus on black people, right? Without actually going for reparations. At this point, that's not enough, right? So please understand the power of this movement. Understand the power of standing behind uncompromising leaders and continue to fight. All right? And that's it. Please become a patron at actifypress.com at patreon.com/actifypress. You can find this podcast on Spreaker, SoundCloud, and other places around the internets, and Stitcher. Yeah, other places around the internets where you get your podcast. And we're coming to Apple soon. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for stopping in. Hopefully, we're gonna have some other podcasts on this same channel. And this is Michael Graham signing off for Talk to MG. And that's it.
Thanks for listening to Talk to MG. You can find my writing at actifypress.com under Michael Graham. And you can track me down on Twitter at MG_returns. Thanks again for listening. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. That's really important for the show to grow. And please remember you can become a patron at patreon.com/actifypress. Again, patreon.com/actifypress.